Hey, it's Don Skaggs again with Empowered Inventing, the place where we try to help you with your idea, your product, the development of your business, your startup, and we do those things a lot of times by just giving you some nuts and bolts things, and then also some foundational things to where if we can get your behaviors right in the beginning, a lot of the nuts and bolts stuff will fall right into place. So today, I want to talk to you a little bit about more of a nuts and bolts thing. And that is how to pitch your idea, your invention, your product, your business. And you may ask me, well, Don, what do you mean by pitch? And I'm not talking about pitch competitions, although if you want to see a lot on pitch competitions, I've done quite a few videos about that. We have actually a whole class about doing pitches. You'll get my opinion on competitions, which is, and again, I'm not against them. I think they're great. Just don't make them your focus. Because when I say pitch, what I'm talking about could be many things. It's basically telling your story and telling the story of your idea, your product, your business, your startup, whatever it is. And you have to have this packaged, and you have to have it packaged well, and you have to know it. And maybe you could be selling in a negotiation for a licensing agreement. You've got a product, you want to license it. Well, you're selling that contract. You're selling that agreement that you ultimately want. You could be selling a product. Maybe you're selling a product directly to a customer. Maybe you're doing it in a video like I'm doing here. Maybe you are just talking to them on the phone. Maybe you're talking to someone about your product. Maybe it's a distributor. Maybe it's an end user, and it's a nice big B2B product, or maybe it's to a mass audience somewhere. So, and I've done all of those things, by the way. Maybe you're writing an email, or you're composing some product literature. Maybe you're putting the information all together for your website. All of these things you could call pitches, because what you're doing is you're trying to convey information. You're trying to tell these people, this is what I have, and this is what I have, this is what it does, this is what it does, this is what it will do for you, and you're compelling them to do something. Buy it. Let me help you solve your problem. Let me help you do whatever it is you're trying to do. So any of those things I mentioned above are basically what I would call a pitch. So you're pitching it, whether you're writing, whether you're talking, whether you're face-to-face, whether you're on videos, whatever it is. So let me give you some pointers on how to get that pitch right. Because I've seen so many inventors and so many entrepreneurs get it wrong. And they get up there, or they get on the phone, or they get on a video, or they write an email, or I see their website, and I just want to cringe sometimes, because I'm thinking, oh gosh, this could be so much better. Nobody's going to get it like this. So I want you to craft your story, craft your pitch, so people will actually get it. They'll instantly get it. They won't wander off, they won't get bored, and they'll actually get engaged and move on. Let me give you just a few tips about this. Number one is know your audience. Know your audience. Is your audience consumers? Are they the as seen on TV crowd? Are they maybe technicians in a certain industry? Maybe they're a technical, maybe they're engineers. Do they do a certain type of job, all of them? Or do they all fall into a certain category? Do they all fall into a certain genre? Do they all fall into a certain, maybe it's, everyone who has a certain type of interest. And that might be a certain type of person. Well, you have to know who these types of people are. Maybe they're in a specific industry. The industry I sold into with one of my businesses was called the Histopathology Lab. And I'll say that 3 times real fast. And so I used to go into these laboratories, and when I started out, I didn't know the difference between a microtome and a cryostat. And if you don't know what those are, and if you aren't around that world, you probably don't know what either of those words mean. And I didn't either in the beginning. I had to kind of fake it till I made it. Early days, it was when I was first started that business. I was like early 30s, and it was tough. So anyway, I had to learn that audience. I had to know what they knew, and so I had to get totally immersed in that. So when you're getting totally immersed in that, and that's the second thing about knowing your audience, and that is learn and know how to speak their language and speak their language fluently. Because they're going to have a language. Again, cryostats, microtomes. Does anybody know what that is? By the way, if you happen to know what that is, and don't Google it, if you happen to just know what it is, send me a message. Let me know. I'd love to know if there's any people who know that world, because that is a really, really niche market out there. So, but I had to learn that language. Now, by the end of it all, by the time I sold my business, I knew that language inside and out. I knew that world inside and out. I knew that customer very, very, very well. And that leads me to the third thing about knowing your audience, and that is become intimate with their problems, intimate with their pain, intimate with who they are, what they're going through. And this is so valuable. This is a very, very valuable intelligence you can get to speak to them with empathy. And that's very important to speak to them with empathy, because if you can understand their problems and say, oh, I feel your pain. I know what you're going through. I see that. And as a matter of fact, I thought that was significant enough. I want to help you, and I have this new product that will help you solve this thing. And that's what we did in our business. I was solving people's painful problems. That's why we were successful. That's why we sold our business. So learn this valuable intel. Become very, very familiar with them. And by the way, the next thing, know your audience is one. But the next thing is, don't blind them with science. That's a Thomas Dolby reference, by the way, in case you don't know. And so, that only blinding them with science only works in bad 1980s Thomas Dolby videos, I think. So, but don't blind them with science. And what do I mean by that? I mean, and I see this with engineers, because these engineers you work on a product, and it's you've got all these moving parts, and you want to just tell them every little detail. If you're one of those people where somebody asks you what time it is, and you have this really, really strong inclination to want to tell them how to build the clock, don't do that. Don't tell them how to build the clock. They don't care about how the clock was built. They just want to know what time it is on the wall. So just tell them what time it is. Start with the briefest of the high points. And for technical people, that's a really hard thing to do sometimes. Or if you're really, really just involved deeply with your idea and the development of it, you know all these moving parts so well, you want to tell them all these things, but don't. Just stop and just tell them the briefest, have those brief high points. Just hit, okay, it does this, it does this, it does this, it does this. And now have those deeper details at the ready, but don't use them. Have them ready, and have them ready in layered steps. In other words, if someone asks, and this is the third thing, don't give them this information. Don't go deeper into it until they ask. If they're not asking, they don't want to know. Don't volunteer information that's going to make their eyes roll, whether they do it physically or they're doing it in their head. Their eyes are going to roll. They're going to mentally wander off. They're going to sit there and nod in the right places, but they're not listening. Why? Because you have lost them. You've blinded them with science. You've just given them too much gobbledygook. Well, you see, if you take this here and you move this over, the reason why this works is this over. No. Don't do that. Start with the high points. Make them very brief. And then as you see their face, and you have to watch it to be very, very you have to use a little empathy here. You have to be able to read them. You have to have some emotional intelligence to this, and that is a very, very valuable skill to develop, and it can be developed, by the way. But once you see their face change when you're hitting a high point, you say, and then they might come back with a question about it. And they say, Oh, well, that's interesting. Well, now how do you do that? Whoa, okay, well, and then have just this next. Now again, don't give them the big long paragraph. Just give them the next point. And then if they want to know more, they'll ask more, and then you give them more then. But don't bury them in the science. So, now, also create and practice the right sound bites. So you're working on these brief high points, and you turn them into really, really catchy sound bites. Things that are going to grab people, things that are going to get their interest, things that are going to make them want to ask that next question. So you get these, and you get in front of the mirror, and you start practicing them. And you practice again. You just practice it till it just becomes second nature. So if you're in an elevator and have 10 seconds, you're able to give them that sound bite. That's that elevator pitch we always talk about, or an escalator pitch where you just have a few seconds. Have a sound bite. Now, remember this, and I've seen this with really skilled salespeople too, is talking too much will lead you to losing the sale. I've seen really, really good. I remember standing in an account and talking and just watching the customer's face, and they were sold. They were like, "Where do you sign me up?" And the rep that was with me that was doing the pitch kept talking and kept talking, and he ran them right to the sale, and then he ran them right past the sale until they were just overwhelmed. And now all of a sudden it's like, no, maybe I won't buy it today. Maybe I won't place this order today. Talking too much can really mess you up, because if you're giving too much information, you have to give it just enough, drip just enough to get them interested, just enough to answer their questions, just enough to close the sale. But if you just keep on giving them information, oh, if I bury them in information, that it'll be great. No, it won't. You'll bury them, and they won't dig out and buy stuff from you. So remember this. I hope these are helpful for you. Again, I'm Don Skaggs. This is Empowered Inventing. Check out our website, empoweredinventing.com, and I will look to see you at the next meeting, workshop, class, or on the next video.